growth. And as I said earlier, I think when they get to 100 million plus, they're going to start to feel the operational, challenges associated with running a $100 million business first.
Yeah.
And then two is, what are we doing? How are we really differentiated in the market? Right. So we've established a brand. So Parachute's a brand, Boll and Branch is a brand, Brooklyn is a brand, but, how do we continue to progress that brand? How do we carry that brand across other categories, and or how do we create other sub-brands within our family that can stand on our own? And you can go out to, Bed Bath & Beyond bought Wamsutta years ago, right? Wamsutta was a great business unto itself, hundreds of millions, but they spent a god-awful amount of money to advertise and promote their brand. And they eventually went out, right? And Bed Bath & Beyond was able to buy the brand. And I think that, to me, is going to be the challenge for each of these companies. I think there is a critical size where they're going to have to make a strategic decision. Either they need to change the direction, for example, change and say, hey, where our whole message has been about cutting out the middleman and just selling direct, we may have to go and create a relationship with some of these big players, the Bed Bath & Beyonds, the Macy's, et cetera, and create a store within a store, or sell like a Bonobos did.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I think that will be the first step to some of them being acquired. I think, Bed Bath & Beyond, we did that with Cost Plus World Market. We had a relationship with them for 4 years on food departments before we acquired that business. So I think that'll be an entry point. There'll be a relationship, and then there'll be some consolidation and acquisitions in the space, and it'll wind down. And then I think the one or two that are not yet acquired could find themselves in a much tougher spot. I think once that first one goes, there'll be a second one that goes, and then who's ever left is going to be in a tough spot.
Interesting. Can we shift gears a little bit and talk about the customer experience and what customers actually care about in terms of, is first of all, the $1 million question, is thread count a myth? Do people actually care? First of all, does that affect the quality of the product across the board? Or is that something that's just really more marketing than anything? Or do customers not even care about that? Is it really a price-driven decision? Do they care about quality in terms of previewing the product before they buy? Because that's an argument against this whole direct-to-consumer model, right, if you will. I mean, I suppose with free returns or easy returns, maybe that can speak against it. But what's driving consumer decisions? Because at the end of the day, when you go online and look at a bunch of sheets, I mean, what's the difference between a white sheet with a silver trim on one site versus a white sheet on a silver trim on another site? Or, going in store, what's the real difference? Can you actually differentiate quality without looking at price? Or does brand names, besides Wamsutta, that's, one of the ones that I know from experience going to Bed Bath over time. Before doing this whole process, I'd be troubled to actually name a bunch of different brands of sheets.
I think, to your point about thread count, right?
Yep.
Thread count really stems from retailers and manufacturers trying to create a differentiator about their product in a category that's very, very hard to differentiate in, right? As you said, a weaving machine, for the most part, is the same. The raw materials that we're all using are roughly the same.
Sure.
So thread count came up a number of years ago, and it is. Someone looked at the manufacturing process and said, well, the amount of threads that are woven into the textile as you're making, a sheet set, creates, a different quality of product than something with less than that. And so those became measurements. And then once that became kind of known, everyone tried to knock it off. And then it became diluted, and then it became confused for the consumer, right? Because, is 750 thread count here equal to 1,000 thread count there?
Right.
And is there a different way to do that? And what does it really even mean? So I would say I think thread count has lost a little bit of its